Pegar.
Start performing the gene. I'm going to give a brief introduction on one water, so that you understand that type of challenges related to water. And hopefully, you're going to study the conversation section of this, and we're going to go over some water, since that's my process, digital twins, or water systems, subsurface engines for adaptation, or sector collaboration with this. Lastly, we go to Q&A and closing remarks. So, first off, one water. There's no way we can start a conversation without looking for all the needs that are happening here. So we see floods and all the 10 billion gallons of damages process, a lot of space and people, and also the droughts. So all that is one region. So the southern one. And we are seeing speed water and one way of thinking of why we have to get into some issues is how we engineers think of solar problems. What we see here is a traditional water supply solution for a regulation system diagram. This is correct, engineering perspective, and we do that to make simple so we can make better decisions. If we go next one, what is missing on that picture is the water side. We usually think of those systems, and we do not do that complex structure. So water flows from rivers, glaciers to rivers where we consume. And then, of course, the transpiration, runoffs, all of that happens. And all of that there's some structure. That sideways also is macroeconomic. This one is a correct approach on how we should be seen into the structure. Why? Because the same water that we are treating to water supply may be impacted by raw dumping of wastewater. And that can cause a shortage of water volume, a shortage of water quality, which we have seen in Brazil, which makes the water not viable for consumption. The other thing is drainage. We are right now in the stage of our regulation where we have a huge focus on water supply, wastewater, however, drainage, which we use to these diffusing conditions, still not allowed. And unless we have that all sorted out, we still be having those problems. Too much water, too little, or too dry. If you go next. This is a more realistic approach, where the water that is being used for agriculture, used for water supply, is going certain concentrated use. And when we think about that, it's also think about our function. All the infrastructure we see has also a huge interaction with us. So we are here in the day. So it might seem counterintuitive because of the large rivers, but most fortunately, the water that's used for human supply are actually waters are shallow. The water had a good soils. So we're not looking at agricultural basis. So we have an approach of integrating infrastructure with underground, so we can filter all that data, we can access that, query the data, and make more actionable decisions based on data, not based on things that we think we are getting correct, which is the other diagrams that you see that the system is isolated. So in that sense, I'm going to invite our panelists today, and I'm really happy to have four leaderships, women leaderships in that panel. because there are some words in Portuguese like engineering, cutting, swimming, infrastructure, which is done. Infrastructure is also a feminine word. Climate resiliency, this is also a feminine word in Portuguese. As well, water, or not water, agua, is feminine. And we're gonna have today Sushimita Upajai, Mona Siva, Karen Flamivona, Paul, and his innocent to join me. For the first part of this session, where resilience climate, I'd like to invite Sushimita. Bueno. Given the fact that you are already taking a lot of challenges of the state of utilities, municipalities, their fragilities in climate water resilience. I'd like to start with you, Sushmita. How are water adaptation frameworks evolving to integrate water resilience climate priority? And for instance, can countries or municipalities take from successful approaches?
Okay.
Thanks, David. So I think I'd like to start from a positive note, which really means that countries, subnational governments, they are now beginning to look at water resilience not as a separate sort of entity or a separate project, but it is now getting integrated into the climate adaptation strategies or at least overall development planning. So I guess maybe that is a good start, which is basically happening across the globe. The global goal in adaptation, which will be discussed extensively, that has separate indicators on water resilience, water security, all of these different issues. So the global frameworks are increasingly looking at water resilience as a part of the overall climate adaptation strategy and the way forward. The subnational governments are now looking at water. It is being looked at the city level across different countries. So if I take an example from India, one of the central ministries and departments is actually helping the subnational governments or the cities to develop their flood mitigation plans. So there are funds set aside for this. Cities have been selected that are being now supported to develop these flood mitigation plans, and which is then going to sort of plug into the disaster risk reduction plans of these cities. So it is now part of the overall global plan. So that's how it's evolving in terms of the global frameworks and at city level. What is also changing perhaps in that it has not now been looked at only as engineering solutions, but hybrid solutions, where we are bringing together nature-based solutions, engineering solutions, and looking at the different ways to take this forward. So that in itself is definitely a big change. There is innovation in financing, so instruments like the debt for resilience funds, the resilience bonds, etc., with the different corporations the cities are looking at. I think those have worked well in South Asia, in the global South, and of course that's getting replicated now, which gives an opportunity to low and medium income countries for the LDC things really then start preparing themselves for the impacts of disasters, prepare themselves, their urban plans in a manner that you're not getting flooded, you're not getting impacted as much as you would if you do not have these plans in place. Frameworks are definitely becoming more inclusive. These are data driven. So the importance of data is increasingly being realized, the importance of technology is being realized, and the focus really is on making this data accessible. There is a lot of conversation around that. We are still not there, but it's coming up again and again in conversation. So what we are now doing is not to prepare what we will do after the disaster, but the plan is now to prepare for the disaster and how we are going to cope with it, and that is being supported through data technology, so that we are doing preemptive planning rather than doing a post-disaster planning. So that also is a change that's happening globally. If I were to summarize and say 3 points and what really needs to be done is basically water needs to be mainstreamed into the overall adaptation planning, which has started, so it needs to be there. The water has to be a mainstay of the overall planning process, whether it's development planning, the adaptation planning, urban planning, any of the development plans. Second, we have to continue to blend green and grey infrastructure. So look at hybrid approaches, not just put one against the other. And third, finance was always important. Third, both points would be that we need to empower at the city level, we need to engage, there needs to be gender mainstreaming. So all of these things that were perhaps very looked at as specialized topics which people did not understand, but it needs to be mainstreamed, it needs to be business and control. So the hand-holding has to happen right at the level of the city, going up to the subnational governments and at the national level, and then all of this coming together through the global goal and indicators to have something which can work at the global scale.
For science, so which need for collaboration, need of integrating different concepts of engineering, as well as technology. Of course, and that can be make information easier for artists to know solutions and experiments. In that regard, what role new emerging technologies like digital twins and AI can play a role in helping the municipalities and governments to improving that collaboration and sharing information?
As I mentioned, these emerging technologies are going to help us prepare for the future. I think that is the main role of these emerging technologies now, that to mainstream risk-informed planning and infrastructure investment decisions. So if we can use these where we can predict the climate impacts, we have better early warnings, and then accordingly we can plan for how we evacuate faster or how we basically build that infrastructure in a way much less impacted by flooding, by the other impacts of climate change. So AI and others, I think that's probably the main role that, or the main USP of these technologies, that we're beginning to now plan upgrades because we have the data, because we have the information, because we can extrapolate information and get the maps right, along with this AI enabled. See, for example, the digital twins, where you have the virtual replicas and you practically understand what is the scenario going to be like if there's a flooding in a certain area, and you can already start planning. So I think these are very useful tools, not just in terms of technology, but these are policy enablers. So one can actually build very strong and very forward-looking policies if we are able to use these technologies well. And I think that is something that many countries and many municipalities are now beginning to look at. So there are examples where Rotterdam, of course, is a great example. They have used it very well. It's also happening in countries like Kenya. India is beginning to use this very extensively so that they can plan the evacuation, they can plan their post-disaster response. So yeah, I think to conclude, I'd like to say what I said earlier, that these tools are not just about technology, these are very strong policy enablers to ensure that decisions are risk-informed.
Technologies are good for municipalities. It's very different capital and be prepared for the future of life. This is also part of the solution, but also the integration of all of this is also very important. In terms of AI, like the modern predictive how the system
Brazil.
Next, she has been working advanced helping achieve math how water solutions are expanding. And as we are later now, Amazon region in Brazil, I would like to ask you about your latest report that address how blue water infrastructure in the Amazon chain was a regional which has been banned. But we don't know if you have access to water, access to collection, water for these are prevalent. Are there the benefits of ecosystemic services that you
Hello, people. It's different. And we work for the constitution of the importance of access to the water and wastewater treatment here in Brazil. So we are not working just for
Como é que eu faço para chegar aqui?
we
Vai
are
ficando quente.
working for all instances that are
Para chegar aqui é só vou pela temperatura, porque é o lugar mais quente.
and then we have a report that we made here
Mas tu já viu que
for
os ventiladores são
the region that we can see the costs of the expense of network works. So how much it will cost to population and to improve the access to the water, and what are the benefits? The benefits involved in the healthcare of the population, the better tourism, the better access to productivity and all these kind of things. And then we made the balance here in the Amazon region to see what are the benefits you can go. Here we have a very big problem in access to potable water and sewage and wastewater treatment. Just 60% of the population have access to potable water, and just 22% of the population have access to sewage and wastewater treatment. And we have a lot of diarrhea, gastrointestinal diseases because of this. And then they study showed us if we achieve the goals to the universalization until 2040, what will be the benefits to the population global? The benefits will be education, productivity, tourism, and also to the environment. Here we have 700 swimming pools, Olympic swimming pools of water and sewage every day in the nature. This is the reality of the Amazon legal region here in Brazil. So you can go from. Then we discovered that each one Brazilian real invested in sanitation here in this region, we will find out 5 reals, Brazilian reals, in the economic and benefits to the population. Hello. So we stop building these 700 swimming pools of raw seaweed, and then we can have better public health, more income, environmental recovery, and higher property too because of the better quality of life. So we can go. And then we saw here that we could find out 2.7 billion in savings in healthcare here in the Amazon legal region, because we won't have more diarrhea, hepatitis, and this kind of disease, and improve the tourism because everybody wants to come and see the forest, and we can have 22 billion reais, and we can have more productivity, and we can have better value with the houses and everything. So we can go with the study, we can see that we have to prove more the access to water, and we have to put in this amount the investment of the climate change, because if we still don't have the access to potable water here today, we have a lot of lack of water here. We had it the last year. We can see a lot of extremely events, climate change events, and we have to put this put it in the planning of the cities to give water and also mitigate of the climate change. You can go here are just the bullet points.
As we can see, the situation in the northern part is dire. As we are dumping a lot of frequent sewer into the rivers, so we are damaging the potential of tourism and of course, also, and that is all a lot of really so it's not just me told us we have a engineering plan that has a impact on several parts of society, public health, tourism, real estate, and knowing that you're a former utilities leader, and now you're like advocating for the improvement of the services. Just like the association with that, do you see any potential for position solutions to accelerate the expansion and be more malls and investments done on that infrastructure can cause real benefits to the population?
Of course, we don't have money to do everything, so we have to be efficient at the application of this money. So we have to transform data in information and knowledge to learn where is the local where I have to put the money and to see the universalization and the access to population. We have local communities that can't communicate with everybody, so we have to use technology and digital solutions to give the access of sanitation for them. We have a big problem here that are the water distribution losses. We have to find where it happened to improve this water distribution in Brazil. We can't continue taking a lot of water and losing this potable water through the distribution of water. We lose here in Brazil 7,000 Olympic swimming pools of potable water per day because of the leaks and everything during the water distribution. So we have to be more efficient. We have to solve this problem. We have to think how the technology can solve the problem of the local communities. So I really believe that we have to use the technology to solve the universalization of Brazil. I think that the transformation of the data, information, and knowledge is the center of the solution. I can't believe that we can solve the solution without the application of the money efficiently. So I believe a lot of this.
Thank you very much. So we're seeing that this foundation is not only an engineering infrastructure, it's several other arms and hands that benefit to our society. We see that technologies can help us to not only integrate the data, share the data. Shooting drones are being used and being to be on good tools. We have key teams in the state of involved, which one the infrastructure and also the sustainability report, which they are basically monitoring the wastewater collections in the city of São Paulo. And we completed the 2020. And now that wastewater come to two rivers that have very low quality, we are now in the trough, and those rivers cannot be used for supply. So they are using that to recover, reclaim that water so it's more used. But before that becomes a infrastructure activity, infrastructure, there's a lot of engineering that needs to be done. And next slide. We're going to go for this. So I thank you specifically for negative coming out for So all that we have is this we are talking about the existing structure and also what needs to be done. In that part, you cover the engineering. And going to understand from the engineering and planning perspective, and which is standing integrating digital geoscience science, subsurface technologies, spatial analysis, helps to mitigate project uncertainties of project management, budget shortages and shortfalls.
Thank you, Julio. It's a bit challenging here, right, with all these lines. It's my first time here, so let's see what we can do by concentrating ourselves. So, as Julio mentioned, like from our case, that is a design and engineering firm focusing on professional services, and our mission as a company is to improve quality of water. So water is a very important subject for us, and we have a great experience doing that. As an engineering firm, data is everything for us, right? We are planning, we are understanding the complex problems that our clients have by really evaluating everything and having precise information about what we have to do. So when we are talking about geoscience sites such as surface, intelligence, and religious spatial context, one of the main objectives and benefits that we have is to really mitigate engineering and project management risks that we have when we are delivering a project. So it also allows the team to have a very precise context of where we are going to implement the project, anticipating, as I mentioned, ground risks and making faster and better decisions using data. So we have been using, and Bentley is one of our partners globally, so we are using some of the solutions that they offer to guarantee that we can have a smarter planning, improved risk assessment, and accelerate delivery. One of the projects that I can share with you, one of the experiences, I'm sorry I was not able to bring here our slides, is a project in London on the South Dock Bridge. And the project was was not about infrastructure, water infrastructure, but it was related to the water space. And we designed a bascule bridge in a very challenging urban environment where we have ground variability and nearby high-rising buildings. So we used three solutions here from Bentley combined, that was project-wise for connected data management, open ground for ground investigation, and leapfrog for 3D modeling. And it allowed us to create a very robust subsurface model. And one of the things, and this was why I got this example, is that we had very interesting outcomes that I can share with you by using all these technology. We reduced the ground scope by 30%, so of course the human effort was reduced by that, and also we saved over 70,000 pounds for our clients. So this is very meaningful. And on the other hand, also using data and having very comprehensive information, it was also possible for us as an engineering firm to guarantee that the budget and the timeline of the project were achieved. So having this, what we call the central source of truth for data validation and design optimization was really valuable to guarantee the success of this project.
Thank you very much. So you're talking about data, drilling, values, everything. But at the same time, we have too much data. We have just now that information of intelligence, so we can make the correct decisions. Like very questioning what for users. How the technologies unify that vision of all stakeholders, and also have infrastructure of mitigate and tackle climate resilience to climate change. And what are the challenges, business challenges to incorporating those technologies, digital twins in all those layers that they.
Yeah, thank you. So more and more for our clients, it's super important to have an option to anticipate and test what's going to be the asset, and also have this real-time information coming from the asset, right? So we have been using digital twins as a very important solution for our clients to really guarantee that we can anticipate testing when we have extreme situations such as floods or droughts. And also during the operation, guarantee that we will have access when we have failures, when we have changes in terms of reservations, and that we have on the ground during the operation. So one of the examples that I can share with you, we are delivering for the city of Houston a water distribution system based on digital tools, right? So this is the typical water distribution network, including hydraulic modeling, pressure monitoring, and service response, and granular meter level resolution. So this initiative is really helping us to quickly identify and address water pressure drops or service disruptions during floods or droughts, and automating anomaly detection and supporting capital improvements. While using real-time data to optimize network resilience and customer service. Another project I can share with you here is the flood protection that we are delivering across the U.S. So this is about engineering floodgates, walls, and associated structures to safeguard urban areas from extreme weather and climate-driven. The manual process of structural modeling and load application was repetitive, slow, and susceptible to human error. So when we as Arcadis implemented the automated and understand standardized design workflow using various digital tools, it made a huge difference for our clients. So what we could see as the main outcomes was a substantial reduction in modeling time, bringing the average duration down from 16 hours to just 30 minutes per structure, so 95% improvement in terms of emission. So this was the type of benefits that we can see. You asked also about the barriers and the opportunities that we have. So as primary barriers that we can see to implement this type of solution is data integration challenges. So we still have a lot of legacy systems, diverse formats that we have to put in this new format. Capital investment and stakeholder buy-in for new technology platforms. So we can see still that people have difficulty understanding new models, and ensuring, of course, cybersecurity. That is so important nowadays when we are using a lot of data and information and having reliability. As alternatives, we can enhance predictivity, analytics for leak and failure detection, streamline collaboration across team locations via real-time data sharing, and improving public trust and resilience, supporting rapid responses to emergencies. So we can see, of course, a lot of benefits to our clients and also for the quality of the services we are providing in the market.
For these sites, a lot of things anticipating risks and demolition risks. We're not have another panel, but days I will talk about insurances. And I really like the panel that also mentioned regard to team. So you're talking both about droughts, the happening, but also flood protection, which is really happening right now. We have the soon, and we are getting to rainy seasons. Then things are for insights. We're gonna have a Q&A session. So the next section, Session is subsurface intelligence for bioadaptation. We will have mobile virtually. My question to Paul is the surface data remains invisible. Discussion is not in this variable. So it's not something. So how big governments and digital tools is that convenience of the state? What's the behavior of the ground? How we can adapt more efficiently? So the behavior was for the video
the droughts, subsurface investigation methods, essential things for function additional tools. All the hospital without we can see thousands of us in California. That I'm exhausted. What percent of fresh water is lakes? 2023 to 2024, drought, increasing temperatures, increased evaporation, changing rainfall patterns, reducing water level, never as much as 90%. But not supporting application of high power frequency, but if chance supply the essential and also plumbing and solve supported issues and issues of the amplified image and contour I sense around the thing and short time 2000 with us in business as a low or there's no problem, but some circumstances telling us that so that allows to any but a pledge of support sometimes data already exists. For instance, over billions of kilometers inside of the collection to high carbon exploration. Here, data at the top should no it's benefiting accurate showing to from storm water. Thank you. But 93% successful. by myself. This is massive reference to the kind of what's the order. Such places as water, the source of water. The original wasn't trying to talk to them. This is a environment you can't imagine having water supply very wells and wells of the they're fairly alternatives. Wells are moments that might concentrate now, trying to imagine a similar system. Down trails, the hardships. Try to imagine that race of sand valley, to understand now, occasionally times, classes like that, in lives. This village is alternatives access showing our side of the mountain, so the water. Shown on the other side, downstream, down chief effects, that's very
technologies are now to diminishing in so many ways. Those resources are available. Climate, these are situations like droughts, like we see now, and recent for the last session, we're going to talk about cross percent collaboration and resilience. And I'd like to invite Lisa and Sean from the dinner. As I was talking to you 5 years ago, I worked in Mexico on natural disasters, and I was listing all the flood and runoff disasters happening in certain coastal issues for us. On your latest report, it was climate and catastrophe insights. It shows that global losses for weather-related disasters exceed $368 billion in 2004, and only 40% of those were shared. Huge corporation. How can data and subsurface intelligence, such as 3D space models, or water cycle, groundwater systems, and infrastructure assets can help to close the gap and enable Where is risk assessment for water related hazards and incentivize resilient infrastructure investments?
Well, thank you, and thank you for that question. I think it's great to be here to talk about this topic from the insurance industry's perspective, because oftentimes we're not brought into conversations. But insurability and access to insurance is often a real cornerstone for communities who are exposed to the rising risks related to climate change. And I think it's really important to just put some context around why the industry is so concerned about water management in particular, but just broadly resilient infrastructure and investment in adaptation. We have tracked in our report that we put out every year losses that the industry is paying out due to natural catastrophes. Since the year 2000, we have paid $2.5 trillion in claims due to these types of events. 8 out of the last 10 years have been above the long-term average for losses in this category. And we're clearly seeing a trend of not only more of these events occurring, but occurring in a way that's more intense. And also occurring in parts of the world or in communities that are not used to having these types of events happen. In Brazil, in particular, it's often, from an insurance perspective, not considered a high-risk region for catastrophes and losses that reach the same level as, say, Category 5 hurricanes. But Brazil is starting to see a lot more flooding events that are significant and has a much higher protection gap than the average that you just had. I think last year Brazil had about $55 billion in losses from flooding, and 95% of that was not covered by the insurance industry. So it's a significant protection gap in this country. And based on some of our data, we see that about 12 million more Brazilians will face flooding events in the next 20 years who have never experienced it before. There's only so much that we can really do to manage against these rising losses. We know that the hazard is changing. That's because more carbon is going into the atmosphere. And in some ways, while we still want to invest in mitigation to lower carbon, we also know that there's a certain amount of risk that's already baked into this that we have to manage and adapt for. The other thing that's driving losses is increasing population and urbanization. So more people are living closer together. When they happen with a much bigger and wider impact. So people are living in harm's way because they don't always understand how these risks are changing. And then the third thing that's driving losses is just the vulnerability of the exposures when the events occur, meaning how what kind of building codes have been put into place, what kind of infrastructure management systems are put into place, what kind of community disaster preparedness programs exist. Those things have a real impact on the outcome when the events occur. And so I think when I think about your question, this topic in particular, it's that third bucket where we can really start to collaborate more and understand how changing investments in city planning, how better data and more detailed data around water systems within cities, how does that change the landscape of risk? And how are we investing to impact that and reduce that? Those are important things that insurers want to know and could build into our models so that we can better understand the risk and price it. So there's plenty of examples where I think better collaboration is already starting to happen. And I'll give you two just to give you food for thought. The first is I apologize, both are in the United States. So that's just what I'm familiar with right now. The first is in California. So California has experienced a significant increase in wildfire activity, fire losses. 2017 and 2018 saw wildfire events that wiped out more than 10 years of profit for the insurance industry. So these were really large losses that had not been baked into any models that we were using. So if you follow insurance news, which I'm sure you all do, there has been increasing rates and affordability issues with even regular homeowners insurance policies, and availability challenges. So insurers are non-renewing and reducing their appetite and retreating from the high-risk areas. At the same time, there have been significant investments to reduce wildfire risk. So utilities are investing $10 billion by the year 2040 to reduce wildfire risk. The U.S. Forestry Service is investing in order to do better forest management, burns, build fire breaks. And as all of that investment is happening, the feedback of how are those activities actually reducing the risk on the ground doesn't get back into the insurance models. So there's an example of a community in Northern California who was not able to get access to any private insurance. They had invested heavily into all of those protections and mitigation features I mentioned, but it took a convening of the Nature Conservancy, an insurance company, a modeling company, alongside with the Development Association to actually get together around a table, understand from the engineering side what changes were being made, roll that into the modeling that the insurers depend on, and then ultimately got that into the insurer to write the risk, price it appropriately, and give them credit for all of those mitigation features. There's another very similar example in New York City. The city of New York is highly exposed to flooding. It's a sinking city in the southern Brooklyn areas where Hurricane Sandy has significant impacts. And they are dealing with a massive resilience structure specifically on water management, how to reduce flooding, and then build back a way to enable those communities that are impacted to be resilient. But as they were building and working with their engineers, they realized that the insurers don't know they're doing this. So insurers don't write that risk. It mostly goes to the federal flood program. So it's sitting on the taxpayers' balance sheets eventually. How do we get private insurance to come back in and write this risk? And so during New York Climate Week, we brought together and that cross-industry collaboration of the engineers, the management team, the insurers, the modelers, and the project owners, so that we can build together that view of risk and take into account all of that activity. So with the examples that I've heard the prior speakers, that's where I'm coming from. How can we think about the data that's available and interpret the activity on the ground so we can take it into account in our models in more real time and give those communities the benefit of those resilient investments, because that's where we want the private insurance to come in to close that gap.
Thank you very much. We are on top of the long run, but I see that insurance can also be a source of knowledge. Because we have a lot of mapping information, risks, then we're talking about collaboration. And this is interesting how you are working with engineering hand-to-hand to projects. As we are talking about just to some closing remarks, anything when time for to enter your prejudice. So closing remarks. So this is interesting because we're talking with different leaderships of this infrastructure sector here, and we are all talking about the life cycle of infrastructure. Infrastructure is very costly to build, and we would like to keep it operational for the long run. And we were talking here all the way of the planning and being, of course, trying to diminish uncertainties, working with different sources of information, intelligence, knowledge to design better, do better, but also to help to operate and maintain that position better. And the digital twins are a framework that can help you to connect different data information so we can have a point where everyone can consume and search information. So it helps also to understand have a visibility of foresight of the infrastructure that we are here, how it's going to connect, how we can improve collaboration as well as between parties, and enable better decision making. Yes. And then some, I would like to give the challenge of us thinking of ways of how we can integrate and visualize and collaborate better to enhance project design decisions, optimize construction process, minimizing the risks, and of course, facilitate operation and maintenance, given the fact that we need to improve our resilience to climate risks. I thank you all the members, the body, body, so she's been that involved for joining us.
Okay.